we are doing the Briar matchup guide, and let's get right into it. We're practically starting from alphabetical, it looks like, but it seems like the ending result is not. Let's talk about Amumu, right? Amumu falls into every tank. The tanks will actually demolish you. I'm not going to lie. Most tanks will destroy you. If you put yourself in a bad spot, he's just going to Q you. His team's going to follow up and kill you. The end result is that he can't actually really do too much by himself unless like you let him fully stack Conqueror, hit you with 2 Qs and then R. You should be just fine. If you haven't already watched the Rammus YouTube video that I made, that's like practically showing you everything that you need to do to beat Amumu and most of these tanks. So they all fall into the same thing where it's like, I'll put it even. I think the best Briars would have this Briar favorite or free win. But more times than not, like just to look at like every Briar player, so the best and the worst, I would say this is practically even because a good Amumu can actually play pretty well. He can force you to use E, just juke that, and then R afterwards, and you're actually just flat out dead. So it's not too bad. These layers right here, hard lose, full clear, and everything will practically all make sense, so take your time, right? But next up, we're going to Brand. Now, Brand is a full clear jungler. These junglers, full clear, all do the same thing. They clear every camp, most of the time faster than you. They reset, spend their 700-800 gold, do it again, and do it again a million times. They never fall off. They just do that, run to a lane if it's free. They'll never take a bad gank if they're playing it smart. And their plan is just actually outscale you flat out. So ball's in your court to go ahead and just get active on the game. Do 3 camp ganks. Do, 3 camp invades, 1 camp invades. You have full control of the map. But these players, what they'll do is they'll full clear nonstop. And all you do is just get active on the map. You will win every gank. They'll never answer anything. But they do outscale you. So you do have to kind of use your early game advantage in a way that you can always win. Or at least be strong enough to deny them farm later on, like around like the 15-minute mark. You start taking 2 of their camps. And then you start rotating, your full side, their 2 camps. Then you take them out of the game and you build up, a bit of a gold lead against what they had previously by clearing faster than you. We can practically sum up Brand as the same thing as Hecarim. We can sum that up as Karthus. We can sum that up as Lillia. And even Morgana. And even Gwen. Which you're kind of seeing a theme. Most AP junglers try and play this way. AP champs most of the time just need a ton of money to really do the thing. Their items are so OP that they can do that. But these champs like mostly won't be looking for 3 camp ganks, right? You haven't seen the Gwen, Lillia, Karthus 3 camp gank. The only person that will get moved is Hecarim, and we'll just go him next because Hecarim can 3 camp gank and he can get a little crazy. Let's just say that Hecarim is enemy favored slightly just because he has more options than you. He is a more potent gank. Would just run behind you and E. Run behind your team, especially if your team drafts bad. Thank you for the follow, Soup. If Hecarim goes ahead and just has a good draft against your enemy team, you have something like I don't know, Xayah and like not even Rakan. Just say people, immobile people on this team. Hecarim walking behind you and just eating you towards the team is sometimes just enough. And then Phase Rush sticks you, he does a ton of damage. Thank you for follow, Fletch. So Hecarim is a full clear jungler, but he's not as stuck to the game plan like these 4 are, so that's why he gets moved to enemy favored. But he just gets more, as you say, more options. He can play the more aggressive side, and he can play the full clear side. It's just, it's a super good champ. More so towards Hecarim as a champion is that he tries to kite you around and pull you into rough spots with Phase Rush. So a lot of the times he can kite out your W, and then pull you into a bad spot, and then that's where he wants to fight. And then the moment that you E, he can actually just run out of it, wait for your E to end, and then R back in. So he can take away your W by running around, right? And then he can punish you without E. So technically it's enemy favorite. There's a lot of times you can find yourself in a good position against Hecarim. A lot of Hecarim players don't realize how squishy they actually are, and for some reason they just a lot of times fall off around the 3 item mark, where that's where Briar gets like super potent, right? They're like on, Bort, Cleaver, Titanic, you'll beat him in most 1v1s. The problem is Phase Rush as a rune, he just kites you around sometimes that you just can't do the damage that you're supposed to. So overall, Hecarim is enemy favored. He can play both sides, and that's what makes him pretty good. Now let's talk Bel'Veth. Bel'Veth is enemy favored. The Bel'Veth one-tricks tend to think that this champion is weak, and that's only because they're the one playing her. I'm not going to lie, this champion's OP, great early game, great mid game, great even end game. Insane scaling. She gets 6 grub. She takes any turret. Plus her passive. I mean, the champion can just deviate from regular gameplay so fast that it's kind of like disgusting. And, you know, just the matchup itself being that Briar wants to W towards someone and then Q them. Her W flat out counters that whole plan, and then she can kite you away with her Q and then re-engage with hers. So, generally speaking, if Bel'Veth plays perfectly, there's not much Briar can do outside of hitting R. If you hit R, then you can kind of invalidate her, you know, her whole champion, but that means that you have to wait 5 levels to even have a chance if they're playing perfectly. The reality is that Bel'Veth is a pretty weird champ, and not everyone's playing her perfectly, so a lot of times you can get away with a lot against this champ. But it's pretty fair to say that this champion has a good matchup into you, just because you can never WQ the champ for free. Her W counters your WQ every time, and then if she's ever in a bad spot, she can E, and which most of the time you would then try and E her into the wall, but she'll always have a Q stack. So generally speaking, if you punish her on counter engages, that's like the best way to play this matchup. But overall, if you just try and raw engage on a Bel'Veth, it'll never work. So this champion definitely has a favored matchup. It's a not completely hard lose because a lot of Bel'Veth players just find themselves in awkward spots. And if she can't stat check you when she does still counter you with WQ and then she Ws, sometimes you just kill her anyway. So overall, it's just enemy favorite. I don't think it's hard to lose, but definitely a tough one. I'm going to move that, I think. No, it's fine. So yeah, it's just one of those weird matchups. It is what it is. Obviously, Briar, right? That's a skill matchup. We're just going to put it there just in case you play PvE or whatever you play. If you play quick play or whatever. The Briar 1v1 is actually something that is super fun, by the way, because I'll even go paint for this. I've stayed up at night literally thinking about this 1v1 just in case I ever had to play it. I didn't want to get caught lacking. It's like one of those random 3 AM thoughts that I've had. Where like, alright, so with Briar 1, right? So Briar 1 and then Briar 2. If Briar 1 goes for WQ onto Briar 2, Briar 2 can just E. And basically what will happen is Briar 1 then seeing that she's going to get E'd into the wall will then also E. So then this E goes off, knocking them into the wall. Their E goes off, knocking them into the wall, but then Briar 1 has no WQ for 5 seconds, and then Briar 2 gets to win this. But if both of them hit W, so like, right, if you're the second one to engage, then bam, you are the winning Briar here. But what about if you both hit W at the same time? If you both hit W at the same time, right? So if we both hit W and we're both fighting, you're both, like, the first person to Q wins this because it's the same thing as last time, except right here, if we both W, I Q you, and then I W2 during the stun, so you can't, and then I just start Eing. You're probably going to W2 and then E, and then all you have is Q up left. Well, you're in the wall, I'm in the wall, except all you have is Q. I can just space away with your Q, and I can walk away from you. So technically, Briar 1 would win this circumstance. Or rather, the Briar that queued first. So in this circumstance, the one that started the fight lost. And in this circumstance, the one that got Q first, so started the fight in that way, won. So there's a lot of different ways to play this one out. It's actually pretty cool. This is actually like something, I don't know if you played any other MOBAs, but like the thing about mirror matchups in MOBAs is the fact that, how do you say, like you both have the same tools, right? So the better player will always win. And that's just it. So that's why a lot of times when you see me on PvE and I'm like beating other Briars is because I literally think about this matchup all the time. Disgusting amounts. And it's weird because of like, right, I'm the Briar that plays some of the most ranked, but no, man, I think about this because if there was ever like a Briar 1v1 tournament, I'm not getting caught lacking, man. So yeah, it's a pretty interesting one, but overall, better Briar will always win. So yeah, I don't know why that's where I decided to make this tangent, but we are where we are. Now let's talk Diana. So Diana is like a worse version of Hecarim in this way, where she can't really kite you, and if she ever QEs onto you and you just have enough damage to beat her, then you just free win. The thing about Diana is that she can sometimes just flat out win the game against you because she hit a big R, and you can never, like, insured do the same thing. It's been much easier for Diana to hit a multiple person R than Briar. And she can kind of just never fight you if she doesn't want to, if she's smart. Overall, champ-wise, you should always be beating her. One of the biggest things in this matchup to do is her E will always put her behind you, so if you expect her to engage and there's like a wall to your left and she's on your right, she's going to slide to your left, and then you can E that way. A lot of Briars aren't abusing that matchup knowledge. I'm not going to lie, a lot of things that keep lower elo Briars out of higher elo is the fact that they don't think about how the enemy's kit interacts with their own. But once you start doing that, it's free. But it's definitely Briar favorite. I don't want to call it even because like flat out Briar wins this. But sometimes you just flat out lose because she 5-man ults your team. So I think for the sake of this Briar matchup guide, we're going to put in Briar favor because per the matchup, Briar does win it. But per the game of League, it becomes more even. So for here, we're just going to put it here. Now next up is Mundo. Mundo's a free win. Have you ever built Bork? Just build Bork, Black Cleaver, you win every time. And then there will be a time at like 6 items where maybe he can kill you, but then it's like, just hit R, and then he can never kill you. So this matchup's free. The only thing that can really happen with Mundo is like you try and W in a bad spot, he Qs you, and it slows you down enough for him to pull you into a bad spot, and you don't realize that you're going into a bad spot, and then he can just chase you down with his team. Overall, this is just a free one. Just build Bork first, you win every time. Let's talk Ekko. Ekko is enemy favored. One of the best things that Briar has is point and click stun against Ekko. But more times than not, one thing that Briar's weak against will be magic damage, and he's a magic damage assassin and he's slippery. So a lot of the times the best Echoes, when I'm playing against them, they'll do a short burst with, just finding an E-auto Q or something like that. Proc his passive, they'll fully run away. And if I go to pressure that, they always can just ult. They're never in any danger. Or they can W where they're going to go and just stand on it because my champion has to be hitting you. Overall, Ekko just has a good matchup into you by kit. But you can always abuse Ekko as a whole just because a lot of the times Ekko players will pull a lot of pressure. That's, your team's going to focus them. They're going to get low. And if you save your Q for just the perfect time, you can catch them lacking. And now you just killed the champion without ultimate. It's not always possible, but flash Q in team fights is the key. And then just pray that you kill him in time. And if you don't, you get rolled. Elise, hard lose. Just like last time. I'm not going to lie, it's not as hard of a loss. I think last video, when I did this last time, I did this in a way where Elise was like the undisputed worst matchup. I don't think that's as much true now, just because of the way that Briar Bel'Veth came out, right? When you were playing the Sundered Sky, Eclipse Sundered Sky was like the main build back then, and you would do, you were dependent on hitting your burst, where Elise would always find a way to like deny your burst and then play out the fights. But now you have more consistent damage that this is like a lesser matchup, but it's still a tough one. She always has, if you W towards her, she always has her E key in either form to completely counter your whole kit. Okay, she'll cocoon you and then just run away. Cocoon, spider form, walk away. You've lost most of your W, if not the whole thing. If she starts a fight on you, it's going to force you to about 40% HP. You're going to go to try and E her to disengage, and then she'll just go repel again. Wait for E to go down, she'll drop down and kill you every time. She plays 3-camp gank style better than Briar, so she's super crazy like that. She can also dive your team better than you can dive enemy team because repel's an OP spell. So overall, this is still one of the worst matchups ever, but Briar's consistent damage leaves her in a spot that if Elise is ever not like perfectly on point, then Briar just gets a free kill on her, and it is what it is. So overall, I'm not too worried about it as much anymore, especially with just the new builds that come out. But it's definitely still a tough matchup, and Elise definitely gets to choose a lot of what happens. So yeah, definitely just flat out tough. I struggle to put Lee Sin. All right, so let's just do this. Let's be fair to this, okay? So I'm going to try and do this as in both players are equal skilled, right? So an equally skilled Lee Sin to Briar and Challenger, Briar cannot really effectively beat Lee Sin, unless Briar's team is able to help. Overall, Lee Sin has everything that he needs to beat you, but the reality is that 99% of Lee Sins, and I actually maybe think more than 99% of Lee Sins, aren't good enough to do it. If you're not playing against Challenger Lee Sins, this matchup isn't as bad as it should be. A lot of times people think that the matchup's bad, and then that projects onto their gameplay. Overall, this matchup is not that bad. I'm doing it for equally skilled, in my opinion. But Lee Sin Basically what he does is he'll start a fight onto you, he'll do 2 Qs, you will then try to WQ him. He can ward hop away, and then you'll chase him down, but sure, you know, you lose about 2 to 3 seconds on your W, like that. You Q auto W2, but now you're out of spells. Your WQ is gone. He still has E and a Q coming up before your next W. And if he ever reaches a bad point, he can just R you away and it insta-breaks Frenzy. So he just gets to, I don't know, he just gets to run the matchup. He gets to gank better than you. He just gets to buy more time than you. One of the best things that bruisers can do is just actually flat out buy time in team fights. Right? I hopped into the back line, I hopped out, and everyone was looking at me. Now they're not, and now they have to, you know, re-figure out who they're going to hit. And overall, a perfectly skilled Lee Sin will always beat Briar in an even circumstance. Now the thing is, if you're under Masters, like, this matchup goes even, and it's not even close. And that's completely cope for anyone that doesn't think that. Okay? But overall, champion to champion, Lee Sin should always win against Briar. It's not even close. Except for when Briar ults a Lee Sin that's out of position. That's when you always, how do you say, you always win, because he can buy a lot of time and he can have a bunch of walls, but you also end up catching him. Steven, you said, wait, are you considering, R for Lee Sin, but what if you demon combo him with R and he died? Well, right, so, like, there's a difference in those circumstances. One, Lee Sin has a point-and-click ultimate anytime at melee range, where Briar has to put herself melee range to even do damage, so it's, like, completely fair to think that he can just hit R on you, and you can't always full charge E a Lee Sin. Why can't you fully charge E a Lee Sin? Because he has R, he has W, and he has Q to something else. It is completely more realistic to think that he can hit a point-and-click melee ult than you can hit a full charge E, especially on this slippery bruiser that is Lee Sin. So, if you demon combo anyone on this list and you don't win, the game was already chalked. It is pretty fair to assume that if you demon combo any of these players, you get to win. That would be unfair to say, I think. So now we go into Evelynn, and Evelynn falls into the Briar favor category because you can do whatever you want against this champion. Dare I even say it's free win? It's practically a free win. You get perma early game. She can't even do much to you. If you ever get, Charm Feared, you can just buffer E into it. Maybe she can kite you around. Sometimes the invis is annoying. Overall, the only way Evelynn beats you is if she just starts hard camping one of your teammates and they're running it down, and then she gets too fed and then you can't do anything because she's magic damage, and sometimes that can be tough to itemize. Overall, you should be doing whatever you want early game, whatever you want mid game. You should be playing Dragon Souls through the roof against this champ, because the first 2 dragons are yours no matter what. There's nothing she can do about it. You also have prio on at least one of the grubs, so just chase her down, fight her, that's it. So it's pretty good. The only way that Evelynn really beats you is, again, if, like, you put yourself in bad spots and then she gets to punish you, which, I mean, some people are doing that, but unfortunately you shouldn't be. So lock in, you know what I'm saying? Get them in the wall. Fiddlesticks is full clear. I would say Fiddlesticks, for the sake of this, would be enemy favored because, like, he does play the full clear style, but he does get a little bit more active than these champs do because he has point-and-click CC. One of the things that makes Fiddle the most OP is just his ultimate, because, again, even if he doesn't just find you in his ultimate, he's going to find someone else. He can also block your R at almost any time that he's thinking about it with F and G, which can be a super tough scenario. So I think we're going to leave him out of full clear. He is a full clear jungler, but I think he's like Hecarim, where he can play either style and do really well. Overall, he just buys a ton of time against you because he just point and click fears you. You go running away. He can also silence you, which can kind of like mess up your combo a little bit. And his ultimate's one of the best in the game. So overall, you should have a little bit of matchup knowledge to know that if he ever tries to W you, you put him into the wall with E. And that is where Briar gets to do good, but a good, even skilled Fiddle should not be Wing for free, so we're going to put it enemy favor there. Gragas is a hard lose by matchup. By matchup, Gragas should always beat you. Now, here's the thing. That's only when it's even skilled, because I had a game last night where it was a good example of it, where I was using creative movement to make him feel like he had a free E, and then I W backwards, and then I get the punish on him. Okay. And sometimes he would still get away with phase rush or just kiting me out with Q. But overall, this matchup is not completely lost no matter what. A lot of people cope that it's a lot worse than it is, and then just stop playing good and stop baiting his E, and then they just let him run rampant for free. Overall, this is definitely a hard lose matchup, but it's not completely unplayable. Like, none of these three are completely playable if you are outskilling them, but unfortunately a lot of people just accept they're against a bad matchup, start tilting, and then it's like, who cares? So, overall, tough matchup, but it is what it is.
Logan is the goat of Briar.
Alright, now we got Graves. Now, Graves is definitely at the top end of enemy favored. Could be hard lose, but let's say enemy favored. In an even skilled matchup, Graves will always beat you, because of the way that his kit just inherently has armor. His W can be kind of like this weird cringe ability. It doesn't cancel your frenzy, but it messes with your decision making on like when you're going to E and if you reacted correctly based off like getting vision afterwards. Sometimes he just flat out forces you to E because he does so much damage and you're not able to play. If you're ever Eing, right, if you try and E in a bad time ever, he just full charge auto Q auto R's you and you'd flat out die. This is a hard lose to enemy favored matchup, but sometimes I'll say that I will give team comp credit where two things are possible. One, Graves is a really tough champion to pilot very well in high elo, where a lot of Graves actually just run it down. And then you also have the fact that, how do you say, like, some of your team's champions will just flat out counter him, and then he's like a completely useless champ. Like, if you have a really good frontliner that sticks him, he actually just can't play the game, because your Graves works like Briar, where if someone wants to just counterplay, they do it. How do they counterplay Graves? They just stand in front of the pellets, and then he can't do damage. So, you don't see that effectively utilized as much as you should, but overall, it's definitely possible, and I see it often. So, I'm gonna move this down. This would be hard lose, but we're gonna say the top of enemy favor and just leave it there. Let's go Ivern. Ivern is enemy favored because of the fact that he flat out kites you, Daisy's OP, and then he just plays support against you. You can never really engage upon him because he'll just, the moment that you Q, what Iverns will do is they'll buffer their Q into your Q. And then you go stun for stun, he gets to kite you around, Daisy's still hitting you, and then he has a shield, and so on. Overall, the champ clears faster than you, plays a game style that's kind of cringe to you, and has a lot of counterplay to you, whereas you can't just blatantly counterplay him without hitting R. If you hit R on him, he can still buy hours of time, too. So, overall, enemy favored, but not impossible. You just got to get a little active and find him. If you put him behind one time and can just perma-pressure him anywhere, the game is completely free. Alright, now Jarvan. Jarvan is one of those champs where, again, it's kind of tough because Briar free wins this matchup. There's nothing Jarvan can do. If he ever EQs you, you just W dodge it and fight and kill him. It's nothing. If he ever Rs, if you feel like he's going to R, you just instantly buffer E, you put him into his own wall. In a 1v1, you can't lose. But the thing is there's some of these, like, you know, some of these challenger Jarvans, what they'll do is they'll just EQ, they'll go full CDR. They'll EQ auto you and then just kite, completely run away. They'll never fight you. And what they do is they just EQ for their team and just be annoying on a 3-second EQ, and they've never hit you. Or they never autoed you to kill you. They never focused on damage. All they did was disrupt you. And sometimes that's enough to just beat Briar because, you know, if his EQ's on 3-second cooldown, he EQs, you W, he just buys time with W, Qs back to that old E, okay, hits you again, and then his EQ comes up again a third time, and now you have no W, and he's kited you around with 2 knockups. So you got to get creative with your movement, but that's only like completely enabled by one, the Jarvan knowing exactly how to play the matchup with high CDR and then never taking the chance to do damage, and two, you know, sometimes him just being annoying like that gets his team killed. So overall, I think this is a free win matchup, but don't be surprised if one of these god tier Jarvans destroys you because they know exactly what to do. But I've only played against one Jarvan that's ever done that, and that was Dardoch. And Dardoch, if you don't know him, look him up. He's a certified really good player. He's the only Jarvan to ever play the matchup correctly, and he's the only Jarvan to beat me. So, shout out him. He did really well. Alright, now Jax. Jax is a weird one. So, this is assuming Jax is jungle, and which I would say it's even. Look, I'm going to be honest. Jungle Jax is not top lane Jax. It's not even close. Actually, it's so far from close. Jax's first clear is terrible. His overall clear is pretty bad. Jungle Jax likes to work is he likes to QE into your laner and then just try and punish them with damage while stunning them. Jungle Jax doesn't get as many just walk up W autos on people, right? Like lane Jax, you are ganking lane Jax, so you're going to fight him, in which he gets to play his cooldowns a little bit different. Jungle Jax likes to QE start fights for his team, in which if the Jax, I mean, I've said it a million times, I've shown it a million times. If Jax ever QEs and you're not instantly buffering him into the wall, and then W out of the stun, so you E him into the wall, right? His thing's still spinning, right? Spinning. And then you W out at the last second, and then just auto Q, destroy him. Now he can only fight you with W, and then you win, right? So, this matchup's not that bad. And then once he gets like 2 items, assumably you should have an advantage because you are just a better champion pre 2 items, and then can be better later on. The Jax matchup is not that bad. A lot of Briars are just playing it really bad, but again, it's not that bad. Now, lane Jax, I would say lane Jax is definitely enemy favored because he will, more times than not, have more items than jungle. He will have higher levels than jungle. He'll get to scale up a little bit better, get his cooldowns lower, and so on. So, lane Jax would be like enemy favored high, but jungle Jax, not that good. Not that good into Briar. So yeah, you definitely hard win that. So Kayn is just a full clear jungler that can get a little cringe. The biggest way Kayn's beat Briar are through like some cheese strategies, like starting your Raptor, stealing your red, and then just playing out with full advantage. Out clearing you, farming one of your team that, they don't care that Kayn walks through walls, and then he does. Overall, this matchup isn't that bad.
Oh shit, I forgot to wipe my ass.
Corona, thanks for the prime. Appreciate it. The biggest thing that Kayn has is his W. His W on Red Kayn is like the complete counter to you. It's exactly Bel'Veth. So just go back and watch Bel'Veth, where you try and WQ him, he just buffers W, buys time, runs into the wall. You lose your cooldowns, then he looks to fight you. If you ever try and full charge E, he will just ultimate it. There is an interaction that a lot of Briar players haven't mastered yet because they sometimes don't even know it. So I'll show it to you here. So this is Briar, right? Nice hair. And then this is the scythe that is Kayn ulting, right? And the thing about this is if you buffer your E, right, your E, at the correct time, the way that Kayn works is like his tangible body goes down into the same pixel you're in and then to the direction that he chose. So what you can do is, so even if he goes the opposite direction, if you time it perfectly, you can actually catch him when his tangible body's in the same frame as you, traveling to the spot that he chose. And because Briar's E is like this, you'll catch him in this little spot and put him into the wall. It's really tough timing, but it's completely possible. So, sorry, you guys need to feed. Sorry, there you go. So there is a lot to the matchup. It's way harder on you to get that interaction than to him. He just hits R, right, and just waits. Overall, you have free early game against him. If he ever fights you early game, you just beat his ass. It's not even close. And then, yeah, it can only really get tough if he, like, snowballs super hard and you're not able to punish him. And then his cooldowns are so low that he's just perma-living in the wall, just Wing, and it's like, eh. That part can get pretty cringe. Overall, I think it's even because you have a better early game, he has a better mid game, and that's it. And if he's blue Kayn, for anyone that doesn't know, right, he just lives in the wall and W's. You should never have a chance to hit him. And then if he's ever going in, he has a one-shot. So blue Kayn, some of the least developed gameplay ever. It's super OP. But luckily, Kayn's not in the best spot right now, so no one has to play against it. Ka, I would say, is an enemy-favored matchup. I don't think it's that bad, as people say, just because he has, like, invis, because, like, I really don't know how else to explain it. I'm not trying to, like, talk down to anyone, but, like, again, if you know someone has invis, stop letting them just go invis. If someone's going to go invis, I'm not going to let them just not get W2'd, right? If I engage on a Ka, I'm going to W auto Q W2. And then once he goes to R to reposition, I'm just going to try and E that away and then reset the cooldowns, play out the fight afterwards. A lot of you are dropping your W2 because you let him go invis thinking that he won't use it or that he doesn't have it or you're not even thinking at all, to where he's now getting extra mileage out of his own health because he's not getting W2 because you're not clicking the button. Overall, though, if Kaz played perfectly with like Blue Smite and R upgrade, basically what's going to happen is he's going to reaction on you WQing, he's going to reaction R, you're going to drop W, and then you're going to Ebe and he's going to have another R and he's going to kill you. So if you realize that someone is going for like immediate R's to your WQ, a lot of times I just go for QR combos where like I can at least use W and then W2 when he comes out and then try and EM later. So overall, it's enemy favored. He should win if as long as he's playing really well. Plus, he's like an AD, assassin that can kind of burst you, force you to E, and then you're in a bad spot. Overall, this matchup is not free for Briar, but it's not. This is where people think it is, and this is where it actually is. Where if you squash him like a bug, and most times if you ever hit R, he completely dies. Yeah, it's not that bad. So Kindred. Kindred is a weird one. We're going to put this one in enemy favored. I played against, Sheed and Kindred. I played against some of the best junglers ever to touch NA server and Kindred. Kindred demolishes you. It's played perfectly. The problem is that Kindred is hard to pilot that perfectly. Basically, what she just looks to do is you will never just get onto her for free. She will never be on your screen in a way that you could ever engage for free without her having a teammate or a tower near. So if you ever find a Kindred like invading and you kill her, she was already playing wrong in the first place, and that's why you beat her. If your team is faker, they'll practically force her to R without your help, and then you just get to look for like a demon combo into the wall or send her out of her ultimate, and so on. But generally speaking, a perfectly played Kindred will never be in a spot to get hit by you unless you like turbo turn up. So the matchup should be hard lose. I will say it turns into this like above Graves thing where a lot of Kindreds don't play her perfect, and she is not that easy to play at the highest level every time. Perfectly spaced autos, perfectly spaced Qs, and even the decision in which to Q. All my Masters Plus players know. Sometimes, like, using Q as Kindred can either be, like, the fastest death sentence or the best spell in the game. And a lot of Kindreds just use it for damage, and that's like, oh, man, you're using it so wrong. The cadence in which you even Q matters a ton. So, overall, this matchup can be flat-out hard lose. But Kindred is susceptible to you just snowballing and then just stat checking her into the ground. So like in a perfect world, you full clear, you gank bot, get 2 kills. Her gank top doesn't work, you get the mark, and then the game's looking good, and like you're like perma doing whatever you want. So a lot of times it's just as an enemy favorite thing where you can abuse her early game a little bit. But perfectly played Kindred is here, and average even skilled is here. So is what it is. Master E is definitely enemy favored. I would even say hard lose. Now I'm going to say hard lose because of the fact that if Master E just does this, he does R and then auto attacks you, what do you do? You're going to take the damage fight against Master E, he beats you every time. So WQ, not really an option. Sometimes people will W1, Q auto W2, try and chunk him out and then go for an E. He will then wait for the E charge up, he will Q, and then he's going to damage check you again. More times than not, he's going to win the damage battle against you. There's not much that you can really do. It's a hard to lose matchup. I would say a lot of Masteries play it not that good because they like to, oh my god, I'm out of range. Let me use Q for some damage. And then, oh my god, it's the easiest person to kill on Earth because you WQ him after he comes out of Q. He goes to W, you E him into the wall, and then bam, you have this free kill. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, this one's on Master E to lose. Champion v champion, he should win every time. But a lot of the times people are just playing bad. Like, unless you're playing against Daenerys, there's no way that this is that bad. A lot of Briar players just get tilted seeing him, and then they just start throwing. So yeah, the main thing to do when you're against Master E is actually just let him engage on your team. And then once he Qs your team, you WQ perfectly. And that's it. right? Like the moment that he Qs your team in almost one-shots or one-shot someone, you instantly WQ him. And your team has like this built-in idea to just one-tap him there. And if they don't, you tell them, and you'll kill him every time like that. A lot of times when I'm playing against Master E's and team fights hit, I'll be Wing hit someone, and then the moment that he Qs at any time, I just flash Q him. I just hold my Q the whole time. I'll W towards his team, I'll flash Q him immediately, and then just start charging E into the wall. Because he is nothing, and then he just gets in a rough spot. It's pretty good. So overall, it's a hard lose matchup, but not enough Masteries are playing it well enough for people to say it's like the worst matchup in the game. It's tough, but no Masteries are really playing it that well, to be honest. Maokai. Briar favored. I would say the only thing that Maokai can do is like some of these collegiate junglers have been trying to bring Maokai into play. So like some of these like challenger, collegiate players will play Maokai a ton for scrims or whatnot, and then they take it into solo queue. And basically all they do is they just try and W auto Q, proc phase rush, reset, just run away till they have that same thing again. And they'll never fight you ever. And they'll never fight with the other team ever. If you're against a Maokai that ever decides to fight you, or ever decides to not be near their team, this matchup goes to free win really fast. But overall, there's a lot of cook in Maokai's kit to destroy Briar and then control team fights really well. Overall, like most tanks, Briar beats him. But there's a realistic universe that you get cooked by a Maokai someday, and you're like, how do I beat this? And it's like, yeah, sometimes he cooks you. Mord is like, so top lane, it's enemy favored. More jungle is Briar favored because, again, it's the same thing like Jax, where he's just on average going to be lower, lower money, lower experience, weirder positions, more 2v2s. So yeah, you kind of cook Mord, and you have a perfect early game in comparison to him. You can't really do anything about it, but it's still Mord at the end of the day, where like maybe it just goes to even. This one I'm kind of ping pong where to put it. I'm going to put it Briar favored because I've never really struggled in a matchup, but I could foresee this one being an even matchup because there's a lot of times where Mord can just walk up and R you and kill you, and that's it. It can be tough, but yeah, I don't think it's that bad, really. Especially because you can get crazy on him on his first clear and just get the huge advantage off that. His ganks are pretty terrible, too. Right? Like, what is a Mord gank? What Mord tries to do is he tries to just, like, he not only tries to be a full clear jungler, he tries to be, like, a 9-camp jungler. He full clears, you did a 3-camp gank, he tries to take all the camps, and then he wants to do objectives. But, generally speaking, in jungle, he's much weaker than top lane, so you get to win that one. Morgana is a bad version of Maokai, where she tries to do the Maokai thing, but, no, man, not even close. You demolish this champion. Like, you just demolish him. If she ever shoots Q at you, W diagonal, dodge it, run at her. She's going to black shield your Q. You're still going to damage her into, like, non-existence, and that's it. Nidalee, again, I just finished getting GM against Sheed and Nidalee, and the matchup's very tough. Like, you can never really... Like, it played perfectly. The matchup's really tough, and this champ will perma-invade you, and you just really can't force her into fights because she has flash on a basic cooldown, being her, Cougar form W. Hopping over walls, and then she's going to kite you around, and you can never really look for a fight on her. If you ever try and burst her team, she's going to try and heal, and if you ever try and E, she'll full charge spear you. And basically what happens is you were already Eing because you were low, and then she times a spear right to hit as your E drops, and then she has a perfect one-shot on you. This champ beats you. It just is what it is. Not too much to say, but again, not a lot of Nidalees are good enough to make it hard lose, so it could be like just enemy favored. Don't be surprised if you win this matchup because this champion also falls off. But overall, hard lose. Now, Nocturne. Nocturne, if you are lane Briar, Nocturne goes hard lose. If you are jungle v jungle Briar, it is just enemy favored. Where a lot of Briars just aren't using Smite. Bro, his W doesn't exist to you, okay? If he ever tries to W your Q or E, just smite it right before. WQ towards him. Once you're mid-Q, you're going to see his hands raise up. You just smite right then, land the stun, then you're good. If you ever get feared, you should be buffering E correctly, and you'll be fine. And you can always look for full charge E combos, and a lot of Nocturnes are going to be like, you're going to charge E, he's going to just walk into the E because he's like, I'm just gonna W it, and then bam, he's in the wall, and then you just get to win for free. The biggest thing that makes this enemy favorite is that he has, a point-and-click R that engages on your team. Nocturne shifts the game in a way where, like, your team will be being aggressive when his ultimate's up and then being completely, like, passive when it's down, and he just gets this gameplay loop that's, like, super good for him. He's just a good solo queue champ, is what it is. He's an okay matchup into you. Overall, it's not that bad. A lot of people think it's this, and it's not. It's, like, fairly this. Nunu is even/skill matchup. Look, if Nunu's cranking 90s on your bot lane, dropping 9 kills in 5 minutes, you lose. If your team plays good against Nunu's 3 ganks early game, you get to 7 minutes without him getting a kill, you win for free. Is what it is. Neeko, same thing, even skill matchup. It's the same thing as Nunu, where if she's acting as a minion, walks in, kills your team perma, there's nothing you can do. If she ever tries to throw her root at you, you just diagonally W, dodge that, and then you get to fight. She's going to send her W away from you, but you put her in this situation where now you're close to her, you know where she is, and her element of surprise is gone. And then if she ever tries to ult you, right, if you see a Neeko walking up with her ult right before it goes up to shoot R where she's going to be, and you get to use her R as an R, and then you get to win. Yeah. It's just the Fiddlesticks effect. She can just hit a 5-man R, and then you cry. It is what it is. Jungle Olaf is actually slept on. It's pretty good. Yeah, it's actually pretty good. It's clear, has really, like, relatively low mana compared to the rest of the cast. So sometimes you can just catch him with not enough mana to fight you, because he'll throw 2 Qs and then he just, like, can't really play. I don't know. I would say this is even matchup where, like, maybe Briar's a champion, doesn't always kill Olaf because of his ultimate, but you're a better jungler outright. So generally speaking, this is like an even to skill matchup. The better player will win this one more times than not. Poppy jungle is enemy favored. It's Poppy. Does a lot to you. Would I say it's hard lose? No, because Poppy has the incredibly tough time with farming to where she can't actually out-farm you, and you can just go full clear perma and then get the items necessary to beat her. Plus, you can just path away from her. You can, like, guess where she's going to path. If you think she's going to path top down, you can just switch her path, go bot up, and then you get to go to, like, one item before you ever have to deal with her, and then it's, like, pretty good. Yeah, so it's enemy favored. She can path into you. It is what it is. Qiyana, even skill matchup. This is not a very good champion in jungle right now, but sometimes her going invis 3 times is enough to be a little bit cringe. Rammus is a free win. If you haven't seen the video, just go watch it. If he ever does anything, you just E or RM and it's free win. Rek'Sai is enemy favored because no matter what, if you ever try and Q Rek'Sai, she can just unburrow and waste her cooldown and knock you up, and then she gets the better advantageous side of the trade. Yeah, it sucks. It sucks sometimes. You can win it hard, like you win this matchup most of the time, in my opinion, through counter ganking, where if she ever unburrows on your teammate and you instantly WQ her, now she's on the back foot, your team gets to trade into that, and that's when you do really well. But if you're the one getting engaged upon, and she is team following up, almost always you're going to have to E, and that's basically a death, because they'll just try and, dodge it. Now Rengar. Rengar is a weird one. Now, I played against some of the best Rengars on NA that, man, they make the champion look disgusting. Last time I played against Scrub Noob, I actually won. And it was mostly just because I got more active than him early game, where, like, Briar's full clear is a little bit faster, so then I found a bot side gank, and then just was, like, ahead 10 seconds on the map most of the time. His team wasn't playing that good, my team was. As per the matchup, Lethality Briar actually almost always kills Rengar. He goes invis, hops on you, you immediately buffer E. It's okay. You'll go to 20% health, you'll WQ him, and you'll one-tap him through the stun before he can W, and it's nothing. Bruiser Briar mostly just plays to build Death's Dance and just tank his combo and not really care. More times than not, Rengar will be just killing your team, and then by default of that, you are now fighting a 5v4. And then he's in an advantageous position because he just gets to EU twice and his team kills you. Overall, this is an even matchup. I wouldn't be surprised to say that Rengar technically wins it, but a lot of the times Briar just has some, like, weird shit going on that she just wins. So, is what it is. I know that Rengar right now today is about to get, like, a huge ultimate buff, by the way. that might change it. If he can like flat out kill you on lethality for free, then it's like, not that good. Rumble, Briar favored. It's just not the same as top lane where you're walking into him, he gets to drop full combo on you, and it's nothing, right? Like Rumble in the jungle rather has to manage his cooldowns a little bit. He'll be generally weaker than top lane and just not as good overall. So generally speaking, it's Briar favorite, but he can still win really hard. Sejuani, just like the other tanks, where like if she hits a 5-man ult and everyone's slowed and you can't damage her, you lose. But generally speaking, you have a free early game and you should always beat her. Shaco, I played against some of the best Shacos too, and they make this champion look like he has no downfall because like they perfectly drop ultimate on you with AP and just catch you with fear boxes. And if they're AD, most of the time they're just killing someone else and then killing you down as a product of that. I think generally speaking, the Shaco champion is kind of weak. Like I'm being fair. But I don't know. He can be very destructive, and he gets really good advantages through laners will never play correctly against a 3-camp gank from Shaco, and he has a faster 3-camp than you, so like you can't always just match his 3-camp gank, even if you know where it's going. So I wouldn't be scared to say that this can be even, but generally speaking, not a lot of Shacos are playing perfect, so it's fine. Shyvana's a free win. The only real way that you lose to a Shyvana is if you let her out full clear you and get dragons while you're ganking, and you're ganking like at bad times, and then like if you fall behind a Shyvana, it's hard to come back, but overall like you have free reign to decide any early game play, and if you yourself mess that up, then that's on you, that's not on her. So I would say she has a better matchup than Evelynn does. Like maybe she's here, but generally speaking, Shyvana's a free win. She can't really do much to you. Sylas is an interesting one. I think Jungle Sylas is obviously much weaker than Lane Sylas, but he can actually get active. Sylas players will start flipping ganks really hard and catch you lacking, and don't be surprised if he just one-taps you, forces you to E, and then just kills you on his next cooldown. Don't be surprised when that happens. It's going to happen. Skarner, we're going to put Skarner in hard lose. He's one of the only tanks that have a good matchup into us, and it's mostly just because he's in this like disgustingly OP spot right now. So generally speaking, I have to put him in hard lose. He's one of the best champions of the game. He gets 4,000 health at 2 items. He gets tenacity, Sterix for more AD. He gets to build tabbies. He fully drives the whole extent of the E and then taps you at the end and then gets to fully 180 you to his team. His ultimate's pretty easy to hit against you. And the best Skarners, what they'll do is they'll actually just let themselves get hit with R and then just R you there. Or if you are his teammate, he'll just grab you like that. Overall, this champion actually has everything to beat you. A lot of them play bad because they're tank players and you just get to build Bork by Cleaver. He goes to gank your teammate and then you just one-tap him. That's often occurring, so maybe you can put him enemy favored. But if played perfectly, Skarner always beats you. Taliyah is enemy favored. Like, dare I say it, I would put this even just because Taliyah jungle is really weak right now. But generally speaking, as a champion, she should never be in a spot to get hit by you. She can take phase rush and never just flat out fight you ever. Ultimate to block you off, force you W in. Like, so here's the thing about Taliyah that not a lot of Taliyah players are doing. They can just ult in front of you to their team. And if you go to W over that wall, they just put the E right on your W. Now you can't be a part of the team fight because she R'd and then E'd the wall linear. And even if you don't hop and you just stay on the other side, now you're not doing anything. Generally speaking, Taliyah players aren't playing it that well and just letting you one-shot them. But Taliyah as a whole does counter Briar. It's not crazy to think that. Talon matchup, I would say, is Briar favored to even, where he just has a weak clear. He just plays to be really smart about his ganks, get a free advantage, and then start one-tapping you. And if you E badly, he will just destroy you. Can't you Q the Taliyah R? Implying she didn't, like, sure, if she's not just hopping off the wall, right? Because Taliyah, she can just choose when to get off the wall. So if she lets herself walk into you, that's like any other mistake where it's like, yeah, if anyone lets me hit them, that's on them. But, like, as per the champion is what we're more so focused on. Teemo, I would say, is even to enemy favored. So, like, a lot of people are just, like, playing incorrectly against Teemo, so it's, like, sometimes tough to say. I will say Teemo's full clear is 30 seconds slower than yours, So you get a full clear and a gank before he finishes the full clear, so you're inherently up in the matchup no matter what. He does have blind for you. If blind is making the difference, a lot of times you're in the wrong spot in the first place, where like you should be just ganking his team in a situation where the gank is well timed, that it's almost a flat out free kill. And if he goes to like, if he starts a fight by blinding you, you just QE him and then put him into the wall. If he dodges it with W, you can just W and chase him, and then his blind comes up in 6 seconds. You W2 right as you think it's coming up. Reset the cooldowns, it is what it is. If you ever hit R on him, you get a free win. You always have QE combo into Teemo, force him to W and run around. And a lot of Teemos will blind you during E just because they're trying to do damage. Overall, it's not that bad. You inherently, through being a faster and better jungler, gain an advantage that he can never come back from, really. Just through farm and your first clear and so on. But I will say, if Teemo gets ahead of you and just starts cranking damage, and now you're walking on Teemo straps, he's like one of the, like when Teemo's ahead of you by a good bit, he's like right here. It's really incredibly hard to play. The best thing about Briar is that she shouldn't necessarily be behind Teemo because she has everything to never fall behind. So I'm going to put it even where like if the Teemo smart gets huge advantage, he can destroy you. And if you're smart and you get a huge advantage, he can't play into you. So here's what it is. Trundle jungle is not that good, but I think it's one of those things that he should always, in theory, win the 1v1 if he plays it correctly. A lot of times you have to get really interesting or unique with your QEs or your E and then, W over wall, break it with Q. Basically, you just have to pick your spots a lot better than him. So that's why he goes in enemy favored, because Trundle can almost always just run at you and not care. Whereas if you take correct fights, you can beat him. But overall, like he can just at most times just walk at you and then make you mad and start stat checking you, and it feels pretty bad. Udyr is one of the full clear junglers. He's much like Hecarim, but way worse. Way worse in the way that if you're ever ahead or behind AP Udyr, he just drops a Phoenix Dance R and Awakened R on you, and then it's like, wow, my game is unplayable. I'm now at 70% health. And if he gets ahead of you and starts building more AP, then it's like, wow, I actually can't play the game. You can never truly one-tap him because he has Awakened E, you can't even stun him. He's high MS, and he has Awakened W. This champion, he doesn't inherently counter you in a way that he'll always kill you, but he counters you in a way that you can't always kill him. Yeah, so I would say he's full clear to hard lose, I would say. So probably something like this. Probably. Something like this. Viego is enemy favored, probably the top of enemy favored. The thing about Viego is like he has E to always break out of your W. He also has R to go over walls, and sometimes you can't. He has the gameplay pattern where he can trade into you, and for you to trade into him, you have to use more cooldowns, so he can always choose the fight a lot better than you. If he ever kills you, you then kill your own whole team. Viego as a whole wins a lot of jungle matchups just for the fact that he can poke you down with just a good Q autos. He has really good, just insane. He's just an insane jungler. He has good ganks. He has good damage. He can play poke. He can play outside. He can play inside. If he ever gets a reset, he hard wins the team fight. Champion's OP. But a lot of Viego players don't have the APM or the mechanics to play him well enough so that you get a lot of good free wins against him. So yeah, and there's a lot of times where like if you counter gank a Viego outside of his E, he's just flat out dead. If you ever hit R on him, you flat out win every time. So I don't know, like played perfectly, hard lose. Generally speaking, enemy favored. Vi is a free win. What does Vi do? If she's ever queuing at you, you just E. And you always can start a fight on her because if you W auto Q, auto W2, she goes down like 40-50% health. And if she tap Qs, you just kill her anyway, and that stun isn't long enough to do anything to you. On top of the fact you can just hit E and then reset the situation, now you're up 60% health. If she ever Rs you, she goes behind you, you just buffer her into the wall at the correct time. Overall, Vi's in a really, really bad spot right now where she's just pretty weak, where you can kind of just walk all over this champ. Volibear, he's one of those champs, he has like a really good skirmish into you, like levels 1 through 9, but the problem is he falls off really hard and his farm is like at best. To to where once you get ahead of Volibear, it's kind of a free win, but early game, he can start actually stat checking you, and it's pretty tough. Now, Warwick is a tough one. Now, a lot of my low elo bobs think that Warwick completely beats Briar. And I'll put it to you this way, where, like, I would say, like, I played against some of the best lane Warwicks. The problem is there's no good Warwick OTPs, Masters Plus. I don't play against Warwicks unless they're top lane. There's not a single jungle Warwick OTP on in A in high elo. So it's tough to really give you the biggest understanding of it. The way I will put it to you is the fact that if I was playing Warwick into a Briar, I would fully counter that Briar because I know what Briar does and I know what Warwick does in a way that I could always just beat them. Generally speaking, though, Warwick can gas out where, like, you know, he counters your E with his Q and then he counters your WQ with his E. But sometimes that's just not enough to kill you, and then he goes to ult you, and it's like, if that's not enough, you get second rotation of cooldowns, and then you start actually, like, chunking him back. So he needs to play a lot better than you do most of the time. And assuming it's jungle, you'll be fighting more 2v2s, where Briar's inherently more useful than Warwick in 2v2s. You can outspace his E with your W, where, like, he engages on you, and the moment that his E's about to pop, you can just slide a W out. And if he EQ slides on you, then you just Q him after, and then E, and now he has nothing but W. Generally speaking, Warwick's not that strong of a jungler, but I'll say that Warwick has a lot in the matchup, and I think it's fair to say that the 1v1's enemy favored, but it's not to say that you should be losing. Xin Zhao. Xin Zhao has a more consistent early game than you, to force his game plan in a way that you can't always answer him. But when you're ahead in the stat check v stat check matchups, it's completely unplayable for the other one. So Briar and Xin have this loving relationship that is, if I'm ahead of you, you lose, and if you're ahead of me, you win. So it's like whoever gets the better early game rocking basically can't lose. Your ultimates basically do the same thing where, like, Briar hits R, now I clear out the circle, and Xin Zhao hits R, now he clears out the circle. He is a better inherent skirmish and can outplay you. If he starts a fight with, like, you know, W, E, Q, and then spaces you out, if you try and E his Q3, he can actually still juke it and knock you up and then, you know, play out the fight after that. So you can't always hit E on him, but generally speaking, he is a more consistent early game in stat check v stat check. That's usually enough to win the game. But if you're ever ahead, you get one gank that he does, and now you just flat out win the matchup. Zac Jungle, if even and played great in high elo, Zac Jungle destroys you. But the reality is not enough Zacs are playing well enough that it's probably just enemy favored. He kites and buys a lot of time, but if he isn't buying time correctly, picking up his blobs, and getting good Qs, then you just have Bork and you one-tap him. Should be hard lose, is just enemy favored. Zed is a Briar favored matchup where you have just a better, matchup than him. Like what he does early game is like okay. He doesn't have good ganking tools, Briar does, so you should inherently be getting like more ganks off than him. And then you can always play, if he R's someone, you just Q him, like QE, force him to go back to that R or W. And you can like kind of disrupt his combo enough that like most of the time he can't get a full charge combo on his R. And then a lot of times, like, your W can just still catch him when he W's away. So it's like, you just do fine. But he can still cook you if he gets ahead. Zyra's full clear jungler just tries to catch you with ER, and that's it. Kind of out of the meta now. Wukong's enemy favored, where, like, Briar, if you catch out a Wukong, he's completely dead. But most of the time, Wukong's how they play is they only show on the map when he has ultimate, and he can just buy a lot of times with invis and Eing towards random things and double, triple R. And can also just beat you in the 1v1. If you ever try and E him, he should have an answer to that. So generally speaking, Wukong should be beating you. Pantheon, I would say, is a free win just because Pantheon's such a weak jungler right now that like Pantheon has to 3-camp gank and then get a huge advantage and try and play off that. It's not that good, not that consistent. You can almost always skirmish into him. And if he W's you, you can buffer E just to blow him backwards. And that's it. It just kind of like negates his combo. It is what it is. Nefiri jungle's super weak right now. If they buffed it, maybe it would be good, but you just force a fight onto Nefiri. Shen jungle, I would say, is like technically a free win. Just because Shen jungle is like, it's clear, it's like and just what it does isn't that good. He's not as potent as top lane, where he's going to have like gold income, getting heartsteal early, and then just like doing crazy things. overall Shen can outplay you, and in most in most even circumstances, all Shen does against you is buy time. Whereas like if you're ganking laners, you're probably playing to kill those laners more than him. So should be free win. You could move it Briar favor, and I wouldn't hate you. But let's leave it in free win for now. And then Mbessa. Now Mbessa is broken right now, but people aren't that good at her just yet. So if you're watching this in the future, obviously people are probably a lot better at Mbessa. In my opinion, maybe change. But overall, if Mbessa ever ults you, you get a free confirmed E into the wall. You outskirmish her early. Her gank potential is not that good. And if you ever Q her with your team, she like tries to use all of her spells to get away, but if she does that, then she's not autoing to fight, so then she can't do damage. So overall, this is a Briar favor matchup. I wouldn't be surprised to say that this goes even later when people get better at her, but overall, right now, she's not cooking up anyone. So yeah, there's the spread. Wow, that was an hour long. Yeah, most of these are ordered from left to right, but I don't know, man. It is what it is. Let me just scroll through here, make sure I agree with most of these. Yeah. Yeah, most of it makes sense. Now let's check and see what I used to think. Now, I made this jungle matchup tier list when I was, when I first started playing, like, Briar a couple, 3 months into her release. Now let's compare what we got. So, Elise, Nocturne, Bel'Veth. I had Evelynn as hard lose, where I was cooked. Yeah, Evelynn didn't. To be honest, I think I say it in the video where I was like, yeah, Evelynn tilts me, and that's it. So it's cool. Nid, Graves, Kindred, Xin, Rek'Sai, relatively where they should be. The hard win matchups. Dang, so Silas and Zed kind of got bumped up a little bit. Jax being even, sure. So not too much has changed. The full clear tab kind of got changed a little bit. Gragas I had it even is cooked. Yeah, I'm cooked. I actually do agree with previous Logan that this is Briar favored. Like, my reason to say that it's even is she can just go triple invis, but again, that's not really killing your team. So old Logan's definitely right. Briar slight win is Rel, Nautilus, and Taric jungle. Old Logan, you're cooked, bro. That's free win matchups, by the way. Even Master Yi is crazy. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, like, back then, Master Yi players weren't playing as good, but I would say, like, I'm going to be honest, this is 10 months ago. 10 months ago, Scenarios wasn't putting out as much content that Yi players have actually gotten a lot better. Like, it's not unfair to think that someone has been giving them the sauce. Sejuani is high up there. Skarner, is that old Skarner? Old Skarner was not cooking us like this. There's no way. Nice. It's cool. It's cool to see. So there you go. I'll save this. That way there's no BS. Yes. Thank you. Subscribe. Download image. Ooh, there we go.